G'day ladies and gents, and welcome to IL-2 Stormovik, the Battle of Stalingrad, or technically the Battle of Stalingrad and the Battle of Moscow Early Access. We've got a bit of a double up today, and the reason we have a little bit of a double up is because we just had a massive patch drop in the Battle of Stalingrad, something that people have been waiting for a long time. We finally have the summer and autumn maps for the Stalingrad map, as well as most of the multiplayer maps in the game. This is a huge thing. Previous to this, as you would have noticed, everything has been snow, but we finally have a map that is not Russia in the middle of dead winter. Unfortunately, it's not great. Well, I probably need to clarify a little bit here. It's not bad either, but there are some definite faults in it, and they're faults that I wouldn't have expected considering how long we've been waiting for this map for. Firstly, you'll notice the render distance on the grass. You can see the grass is spawning in about 20 meters away from the aircraft on the ground. I'm not running some short render distance to try and keep this keep the graphical load on my computer down at the moment. I run a GTX 980 Game of the Year edition. I have no fear of this game's graphics at all. That's maximum render distance on the grass. It renders at about 20 meters from your aircraft, and that's as far as it goes. Actually, as far as I've been able to tell, there is no setting to reduce it or increase it anywhere in the options menu. The second thing you want to notice is from the third-person view, the glass just clips straight through the physical model of the aircraft, although thankfully from the first-person view, it doesn't appear to. It never comes through the top of the wings. Still, yeah, those are some sort of stuff that I would have expected to... Considering we've been waiting for this map for almost a year, I would have expected a little bit more than that. So now we're up in the air, we can have a little bit of a look at the textures that you actually see while you're in the sky, and you'll notice that they're not great. Well, again, this is a double up. They're not bad either. The resolution is certainly high enough that you can identify everything on the ground. The roads are clearly marked and sharp and look convincing, even at this relatively low altitude here at about 300 to 400 meters. But you can see the texture quality is not there in the paddocks and the actual ground areas in between these roads. And the lower you get, the more quickly it becomes apparent that this is just a flat texture. Now, this is probably not a whole lot different to how the winter map actually handled it, but the way the snow was worked made the ground look like a convincing snowed over area. This, well, as I said, it's certainly not bad, but again, we've been waiting for this map for quite some time, and this is a much more advanced engine than most of the other World War II flight simulators that are on the market at the moment, that's capable of clearly some vastly more advanced visuals. I would have expected more out of the map given the development time on it. I would have expected high quality texture resolutions. I would have expected, I don't know, something more. It's a little bit of a letdown. As I said, the map itself, it's not bad, and I'm going to enjoy playing on it. It's great already, I can tell you, flying it all day to not be snowblind after having spent some time in the air, but it's not as much as I would have expected considering the amount of time we've been waiting for it. Now, obviously, it hasn't just been the Stalingrad map, which is an incredibly big map. A whole bunch of other maps will change. The other multiplayer maps now have summer and autumn versions as well. But again, these are using exactly the same textures. The maps are exactly the same layout as they were before. Nothing in the way that they've worked has changed between summer and winter, or at least not that I've noticed. Just the appearance has changed, that's all. Now, the campaign mode, on the other hand, that has been increased. Previous to this, the Battle of Stalingrad campaign mode, which is always a little bit threadbare and was not one of the great selling points for the game, but it was there. It only included the winter months, or the end of the Stalingrad campaign, which was basically Russia pushing Germany back out of Stalingrad and began the push of them back out of Russia. You never actually got to play the start of the Battle of Stalingrad when Germany came in and Black Thursday happened and the beginning of the Battle of Stalingrad actually occurred. Well, now you can. The summer and autumn maps are utilised to create a three-part campaign starting before the campaign was originally available in Battle of Stalingrad on release, and it covers the German invasion of Stalingrad and the beginning of the Battle of Stalingrad itself. But of course, the maps weren't the only thing that came in this patch. We also got a new aircraft, and this is the BF-109 E-7. Now, the E-7 is one of two 109s that will be available in Battle of Moscow. I don't really feel confident in talking about its overall performance too much at the moment. I've only had a day with the plane at this point. I haven't had much time to play around. What I will say is my first impressions of the aircraft are very, very, very good. It's incredibly nimble, very manoeuvrable, it's very light. The E-7 series was actually powered by two different engines, depending on if it was an early build or a late build. And at this point, I'm not entirely sure which engine it actually has. So a little bit more research there is going to have to take place so I can find that one out. The cannons on it are excellent. The 7mm or the 30 caliber machine guns are weak, but they do have a good supply of ammunition, so you can lay it on fairly heavily if you need to. The E-7 really has no issue taking on the lags from the Battle of Stalingrad campaign, and I've even managed to toe-to-toe it with a couple of the Yak-1s. The problem the E-7 has that I've already noticed is dealing with faster aircraft. You cannot run the engines in combat or beyond. So at a throttle position in excess of about 68 to 70% for an excessive period of time, you will burn out the engines incredibly quickly. I was actually pretty proud of this shot. Now if I only had been checking over my shoulder, I would have seen the second lag come in, and maybe I would have entered into this second fight without a damaged engine. But anyways, as I was saying, the drawbacks of the E-7 is definitely engine reliability. It cannot be pushed for excessive period of time, and once it takes engine damage, well, this second fight could have been a second kill for me. I actually got the guns onto the second lag, the one that did the damage to my engine, and applied some pretty critical damage of my own, at which point the pilot disengaged and ran for a runway. Now, the problem was, at that point, this plane just didn't have enough engine left in it to catch the lag, even though the lag was damaged. He simply flew away from me. As I was going through attempting my pursuit, I was constantly having to pull back on the engine, otherwise risking overheating once the engine was in place. At the point that I disengage from the pursuit and start heading back towards base, I couldn't run the aircraft at a throttle position above 45%, and I was still winding it back. Now, I did manage to get it back to the runway, but it was a near thing. I'm pretty sure the engine was very close to dying when I actually put wheels back on the ground. Now, the second weakness of the E-7 that I've noticed is the airframe itself. Now, the E-series was always built light, which is why they're so nimble in combat. People are often surprised by exactly how manoeuvrable the E-series 109s really were. They could turn scary quick, but the catch was they were lightweights. They couldn't take a hit. You can see it in the aircraft on screen right now. A half-second burst has almost crippled this aircraft. And I got very lucky. That, under normal circumstances, should have probably killed me, but for some reason the engine has kept going and the wings stayed on and I was able to continue in the fight, but that's not entirely normal. That was more pure luck than anything else. Now, there is an unlock for the E-7 that allows you to add additional armour to the aircraft that will toughen up the airframe and make it take more of a hit. The armour seems to be based mostly on the underside of the aircraft, but it does look like it wraps around in specific spots on top of the plane as well. There is just one catch. With that armour comes weight. The more weight you add to the E-7, the less nimble it's going to be. Personally, I think I would rather have the lighter aircraft than the one with the armour that may take one or two hits more, but is more likely to take one or two hits because it is less nimble. However, the option is available there for those that want to use it. Other options for the E-7 include armoured glass at the front of the cockpit, which is pretty standard amongst all the 109s. You can remove the headrest for better rearward visibility. Again, that is pretty standard to the 109s. This sneaky lag actually dragged me over the top of some Russian AAA at this point and rattled the bottom of my aircraft, which didn't really help matters all that much. That was pretty much the final nail in the coffin. I follow him for a little bit longer here, and then I break off to the left and just begin a long, wide turn back to base, because I know there's at least one aircraft still behind enemy lines, or behind my lines between me and my runway, and I really wanted to avoid it back in this condition. As you can see, the amount of damage on the right wing, it's not flying great, although it's flying better than I would have expected it to. So anyways, the two remaining options for the E-7 in its unlocks are two sizes of bomb, one small, one large. I can't remember the exact poundage on each of the bombs, but a couple of bomb unlocks are pretty standard on the 109s again, so there's nothing incredibly new here. The one thing I did notice about the E-7, however, which surprised me, is I went to change its ammunition belts and found that at least in this preliminary stage, the early access E-7 doesn't appear to have any ammo belt options. You only have access to the default belts, you cannot change your ordnance at all. That may change with patching, but at this time, there's no other options to select. But anyway, that about covers my very early first impressions of the E-7. Normally I wouldn't do any first impressions this early on, as I'm not 100% comfortable with the aircraft, or at least not yet. I usually prefer 1 or 2 days with the plane first before I even think about it. But at the same time, it's a 109, I know my 109s, I very much like this 109. It's a beautiful plane, and I'll do a bit of a recap on it later. And that also covers the summer maps. They're serviceable maps, they'll work. They're even reasonably pretty in some places, but they're not quite what I was expecting given the development time that the maps are meant to have had spent on them. Anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed the video. Click like if you do, subscribe if you want to see more. Fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.